Never thought a family dinner would change everything. The moment is seared into my memory like a brand on my soul. 23 guests seated at my mother-in-law Patricia's elegant dining table, watching as servers placed sizzling ribeye steaks before everyone except me. My empty plate sat like a spotlight on my exclusion, glaring white porcelain against the dark mahogany. When my aunt asked why I got nothing, Patricia smiled thinly and said those words that still echo through my nightmares. I only ordered for family. The silence felt eternal until I finally found my voice. If you are watching this, please like and subscribe and let me know in the comments where you are watching from, as I tell you what happened when I finally stood up to the woman who never considered me family. My story starts long before that infamous dinner. I grew up in a loving working-class home in Phoenix with parents who worked tirelessly to give me opportunities they never had. My father managed a small auto repair shop for 28 years, and my mother worked as a receptionist at a dental clinic. They sacrificed everything to send me to Arizona State University, making me the first in our family to earn a degree. I worked nights at a diner through school, took out student loans, and eventually earned my master's in occupational therapy. By the time I met Ryan, I had built a successful practice working with stroke patients and accident survivors. My work was fulfilling, helping people regain independence and confidence after life-changing injuries. I lived in a modest apartment in Scottsdale, drove a reliable Honda Civic, and had a tight circle of close friends. My life wasn't glamorous, but it was authentically mine, built through hard work and determination. I met Ryan at a wedding 3 years ago in Sedona. He was the best man. I was a college friend of the bride. We locked eyes across the reception venue in that cliché way you never think happens in real life. He was devastatingly handsome in his tailored charcoal suit with warm brown eyes and an easy smile that made my stomach flutter. When he asked me to dance to a slow country song, the connection was immediate and electric. We talked until the venue staff started stacking chairs around us, oblivious to everything but each other. Ryan was a commercial real estate developer from a wealthy family in Scottsdale. His father, Richard, had built a successful property development empire, and his mother, Patricia, came from old Phoenix money. Her family had owned cattle ranches since the territorial days. Ryan had attended prestigious private schools, graduated from Stanford, and moved in social circles I had only glimpsed in magazine spreads. Despite our vastly different backgrounds, we connected on a deeper level that transcended social class. He was intelligent, driven, but refreshingly down to earth, and made me laugh like no one else ever had. Our romance was a whirlwind of desert sunsets, hiking adventures, and intimate dinners that stretched late into the Arizona nights. Within 6 months, he proposed during a weekend getaway to Flagstaff, getting down on one knee beside a snow-dusted pine tree with the San Francisco peaks glowing in the background. I said yes without hesitation, believing love could bridge any gap between our worlds. That was my first mistake. I underestimated how deeply class divisions could run, especially for someone like Patricia. I first met Ryan's parents at our engagement dinner at the exclusive Phoenix Country Club. Richard was polite, if somewhat reserved, a distinguished man with silver-streaked hair who seemed more comfortable discussing market trends than personal matters. But Patricia was another story entirely. She was elegantly dressed in designer clothes that looked effortless, but probably cost more than my monthly salary. Her smile never reached her ice-blue eyes when she looked at me. Throughout that first dinner, Patricia peppered me with questions that felt more like a deposition than conversation. Where exactly did I grow up? What neighborhood? What did my parents do? Where did I attend school? Each answer seemed to disappoint her further, though she maintained a veneer of Southwest hospitality. She mentioned Ryan's ex-girlfriend, Savannah, several times, noting her family's second home in Aspen and her father's position as chief of surgery at Mayo Clinic. Savannah and Ryan looked so perfect together at the Thunderbird charity ball, she reminisced, showing me a photo on her phone of a stunning blonde in a Vera Wang gown. Her mother and I serve on the hospital board together. Such a shame things didn't work out. Ryan seemed oblivious to these subtle daggers. He adored his mother and couldn't see past her polished exterior. Whenever I gently mentioned her behavior later, he would defend her intentions with frustrating loyalty. "Mom's just protective," he would say, his voice taking on the tone of someone who'd repeated this explanation countless times. She wants to make sure I'm happy. Give her time. She'll warm up to you. Time, unfortunately, only seemed to make things worse. Ryan's sister Carmen initially appeared friendly, complimenting my turquoise jewelry or asking about my work with patients. But there was an underlying competitiveness in her interactions. She constantly mentioned her own achievements, her MBA from Wharton, her position at a prestigious marketing firm, or subtly corrected my etiquette mistakes at family gatherings. Ryan's brother Marcus and his wife Jennifer maintained a polite distance. They were cordial but never warm, following Patricia's lead and keeping me at arm's length. I later learned that Jennifer had endured similar treatment when she first joined the family, but eventually won approval by working at Richard's development company and adapting completely to their lifestyle. I tried everything to win Patricia's approval. I brought thoughtful gifts to family gatherings, handcrafted pottery from local artisans, gourmet salsas from small Phoenix businesses. I researched topics she was interested in, from desert landscaping to charity fundraising. I offered to help with her annual auction benefiting children's hospitals. Each effort was either forgotten or dismissed with surgical precision. The turquoise bracelet I gave her for her birthday somehow never made it out of its velvet box. My offer to help coordinate her charity auction was declined because the committee is already established and we work with a very specific type of volunteer. The only relative who showed me genuine kindness was my Aunt Rosa, my mother's sister, who had moved to Scottsdale 15 years earlier. Rosa was my lifeline, providing perspective and support when I felt like I was drowning in Patricia's subtle hostility. Unlike my parents who lived back in Phoenix's west side, Rosa could attend family functions and witness the dynamics firsthand. She saw what Ryan couldn't or wouldn't see. When the invitation arrived for Patricia's annual family dinner celebrating Richard's semi-retirement, I approached it with both hope and dread. The embossed card specified cocktail attire and a 7-course meal prepared by a renowned chef from one of Scottsdale's most exclusive restaurants. Rosa had also been invited, which was unusual but gave me some comfort. I later learned that Richard and Rosa had been friendly acquaintances through business connections, something Patricia tolerated but never embraced. "This is an important night," Ryan told me as we prepared for the event, adjusting his tie in our bedroom mirror. "Dad is finally stepping back from day-to-day operations, and Mom has been planning this dinner for months. Everyone will be there, the whole extended family, business partners, everyone." I nodded, selecting a conservative black cocktail dress that I hoped would meet Patricia's exacting standards, while not appearing to try too hard. "I know. I'll do everything I can to make sure it goes perfectly." If only I had known then how that night would unfold, and how it would change everything forever. The evening of Richard's retirement celebration arrived with a crisp November chill in the desert air. Ryan and I pulled up to his parents' sprawling adobe mansion in our BMW, joining the line of luxury vehicles, Mercedes, Lexus, Porsche, in the circular driveway. The house was illuminated like something from Architectural Digest, with carefully placed landscape lighting highlighting the native desert plants and Spanish colonial architecture. "You look beautiful," Ryan said, squeezing my hand before we walked to the imposing wooden door. I had spent hours preparing, wearing the black dress I had saved 4 months to afford, with my hair professionally styled in an elegant updo and makeup carefully applied to look polished but not overdone. Patricia greeted us at the door herself, bypassing the hired staff who took coats and directed other guests. Braced Ryan warmly, holding him close and exclaiming how handsome he looked in his navy suit. When she turned to me, her smile cooled noticeably, like ice forming over water. She offered a brief air kiss near my cheek, careful not to actually make contact. "Isabella, you made it," she said, as though my attendance had been uncertain. She made no comment about my appearance before turning to welcome the guests behind us. The grand foyer opened to several elegantly decorated rooms filled with about 40 people in cocktail attire. Crystal chandeliers cast a warm glow over the proceedings, and staff in crisp white uniforms circulated with trays of champagne and hors d'oeuvres. A classical guitarist played softly in the corner of the main living area. I recognized many faces from previous family gatherings. Richard's brother and his wife, Ryan's cousins from Tucson, several partners from the development firm, Patricia's sister Charlotte holding court near the massive stone fireplace, gesturing dramatically as she spoke to an attentive audience about her recent art acquisition. As Ryan led me through the rooms, stopping to greet relatives and friends, I noticed the family photographs arranged on tables and walls. There were professional portraits of Ryan and his siblings as children, candid shots from family vacations to Cabo and Vail, and several of Richard and Patricia at various charity galas and business functions. I searched but couldn't find a single photo from our wedding, though there were recent pictures of both Marcus and Carmen with their spouses prominently displayed. "Ryan, come here, son," Richard called from across the room. Ryan squeezed my hand apologetically before heading over to join his father and several older men I recognized as senior partners at the firm. Left on my own, I wandered toward the dining room, admiring the elaborate table setting visible through the wide doorway. The long mahogany table was set for 23, with fine bone china, crystal stemware, and silver flatware arranged with mathematical precision. Name cards in elegant calligraphy marked each place setting. "Quite the production, isn't it?" Undermine a familiar voice said behind me. I turned to find my Aunt Rosa, elegant in a deep burgundy dress, her silver streaked hair styled in her signature layered cut. "Rosa?" I embraced her, genuinely relieved to see a friendly face. "I'm so glad you're here." "Richard and I go way back," she said with a knowing smile. "Business connections. Patricia knows this, but conveniently forgets whenever possible. Richard made sure I was included tonight." As we chatted, a server approached with a tray of champagne flutes. He offered one to Rosa but moved to walk past me without stopping. I had to reach out and ask, "May I have one as well, please?" The server looked momentarily confused, then nodded and allowed me to take a glass. As he walked away, I noticed Patricia watching the interaction from across the room, her lips pressed into a thin line of disapproval. "Don't let her get to you," Rosa whispered, following my gaze. "That's exactly what she wants, to make you feel small and out of place." Throughout the next hour, I noticed similar small exclusions. Servers consistently overlooked me when offering canapés. Mini crab cakes, bacon-wrapped scallops, stuffed mushrooms that looked absolutely delicious. When Carmen showed everyone her new diamond tennis bracelet, a gift from her husband, Patricia suggested it was exactly the kind of quality piece that comes from good breeding and refined taste, while glancing pointedly at my modest jewelry. The most obvious slight came when Patricia circulated through the room, personally refilling wine glasses. She topped off everyone's drink, engaging in brief conversation with each guest about their children, their businesses, their recent travels. When she reached Rosa and me, she refreshed Rosa's glass while asking about her recent vacation to Santa Fe. Then, without acknowledging me, she turned to move away. As she did, her elbow accidentally bumped my arm, causing red wine to splash onto my black dress. "Oh dear," she said without genuine concern in her voice. "You should go to the powder room and take care of that immediately. Down the hall, second door on the right." In the bathroom, I dabbed at the stain with a damp towel, fighting back tears of frustration and humiliation. Through the heating vent, I could hear voices from the adjacent room, which I realized was Patricia's home office. "She's trying so hard, it's painful to watch." Patricia's voice drifted through clearly. "That dress is obviously off the rack from Nordstrom, and those shoes with that handbag, no sense of coordination whatsoever." "Mom, be nice," Carmen's voice replied, though she was laughing. "Ryan seems happy enough." "For now," Patricia said coldly. "Defamation called last week, you know. Still single, still beautiful, still from the right kind of family. I've always thought they would find their way back to each other. Eventually." towel pressed against my dress. Ryan had dated Savannah for 3 years before meeting me. They had broken up because, according to Ryan, they wanted different things in life. I had no idea they were still in contact, much less that Patricia was actively maintaining those connections. When I returned to the party, Ryan was deep in conversation with his father about the transition of leadership at the firm. He barely noticed my return, nodding absently when I touched his arm to let him know I was back. The strain of maintaining a pleasant, expressionally unwelcome was becoming exhausting. My face hurt from forced smiles and my heart was pounding with anxiety. Finally, Patricia announced that dinner would be served. Guests began moving toward the dining room, searching for their assigned seats. I checked each elegantly written name card twice, but couldn't find mine anywhere along the table. "Ryan," I whispered urgently, "I don't see my place card anywhere."
He looked surprised, then shrugged casually. "Probably just an oversight." "Here, you can sit between me and Rosa." He pulled up an additional chair from against the wall, disrupting the careful spacing of the place settings. The chair he added had no charger plate, no crystal glasses, none of the elaborate place setting that everyone else had. It looked exactly like what it was, an afterthought. Patricia noticed immediately, her eyes narrowing as she surveyed her perfectly orchestrated table. "Ryan, we had the seating arranged very specifically," she said, her voice tight with barely controlled irritation. "It's fine, Mom. Isabella can sit here," he replied, already pulling out the chair for me. As everyone settled into their seats, I felt Patricia's disapproving glances every time I spoke. When I answered Richard's polite question about my work with a story about helping a stroke patient regain the ability to write letters to his grandchildren, Patricia interrupted to ask Marcus's wife about their recent vacation to Jackson Hole, effectively cutting me off mid-sentence and redirecting all attention away from me. The tension was building like pressure in a tea kettle, but I had no idea how much worse things were about to get. The dining room glowed with the soft light of dozens of votive candles and the ornate crystal chandelier overhead. Fine bone china gleamed against the dark mahogany table, each place setting accompanied by an array of silverware that made me silently thank Rosa for the crash course in formal dining etiquette she had given me months ago. Elaborate floral arrangements of white orchids and desert sage created a sophisticated centerpiece running the length of the table. Once everyone was seated, servers appeared from the kitchen in choreographed precision. The head server, a distinguished man in a crisp white jacket, announced the first course: pan-seared diver scallops with butternut squash puree and pancetta crisps. White porcelain plates were placed before each guest with artistic precision. Each guest except me. I sat awkwardly as everyone around me received their appetizer, the aromatic dish making my stomach growl with hunger. Ryan was engaged in animated conversation with his brother about quarterly projections for the development firm and didn't immediately notice. Rosa, however, did. "Excuse me," she said to a passing server, her voice carrying just enough volume to be heard by nearby guests. "My niece didn't receive the first course." The server looked uncomfortable and glanced toward Patricia, who smiled placidly from the head of the table like a queen surveying her domain. "I believe we're one portion short," Patricia said smoothly. Han the chef prepared exactly enough for the invited guests. Perhaps Isabella could share with Ryan? The implication was crystal clear. I hadn't been included in the original count because I hadn't really been invited, merely tolerated as Ryan's +1. Ryan finally noticed the situation and frowned slightly. "Mom, couldn't the kitchen prepare another portion?" "The scallops are quite delicate, dear. They were prepared in exact quantities for optimal presentation. I'm sure Isabella understands." Her tone suggested that making an issue of it would be terribly unsophisticated. Ryan hesitated, clearly torn between confronting his mother and avoiding a scene, then pushed his plate slightly toward me. "We can share," he said quietly, before returning to his conversation with Marcus. I took one small scallop, my appetite diminishing with each passing moment of humiliation. Around the table,
Conversation flowed about real estate investments, recent trips to Europe, and Carmen's daughter's acceptance to an exclusive private preparatory school. I remained silent, feeling increasingly invisible. When the second course arrived, lobster bisque with truffle oil and chive garnish, the pattern repeated exactly. Everyone received a serving except me. This time, I didn't bother to point it out, and neither did Ryan. He absently offered me a spoonful of his bisque while discussing the merits of commercial versus residential development with his cousin. By the third course, a palate-cleansing champagne sorbet, I noticed several guests casting uncomfortable glances in my direction as I sat with an empty space before me. Richard appeared genuinely confused but said nothing, deferring to his wife's management of the dinner, as he had presumably done for decades. Then came the main course. And this is where Patricia's cruelty reached its crescendo. Servers entered carrying silver-domed platters with great ceremony. When the domes were lifted simultaneously, the aroma of perfectly grilled ribeye steaks filled the room. Prime cuts cooked to each guest's exact preference, accompanied by roasted root vegetables and truffle-infused mashed potatoes. The presentation was restaurant quality, and appreciative murmurs rippled around the table. A server placed plates before each person until he reached me. Instead of the beautiful steak everyone else received, he set down a small bowl containing what appeared to be leftover salad, wilted lettuce, a few cherry tomatoes, and some croutons, with no dressing in sight. The contrast between my meager bowl and the elaborate meals surrounding me couldn't have been more stark or deliberately insulting. Rosa set down her fork with a sharp clink against her plate that rang through the room like a gunshot. "Patricia, why does Isabella have leftovers when everyone else has steak?" The table fell completely silent, conversations stopping mid-sentence as attention turned to our end of the table. Even the soft background music seemed to fade away. Patricia's smile remained fixed, but her eyes hardened to chips of blue ice. "I only ordered for family," she said, her voice honey-sweet but laced with venom. "The steaks were quite expensive, dry-aged prime beef from a specialty ranch in Montana. I'm sure Isabella appreciates something lighter anyway." The silence that followed was deafening. I could feel every eye on me, waiting for my reaction. Next to me, Ryan continued cutting his steak, his eyes fixed firmly on his plate as if he could make this moment disappear through sheer willpower. "Eily or not?" I asked him quietly, my voice barely above a whisper. Ryan glanced up, his expression pained but cowardly. "Do this? Not here," he muttered, still chewing his perfectly prepared steak. That was when something inside me broke. 2 years of slights, exclusions, and pretending not to notice crashed down on me at once like an avalanche. I had endured Patricia's passive-aggressive behavior for Ryan's sake, believing that eventually she would accept me. But sitting there with leftover salad while everyone else enjoyed premium steak, I realized nothing would ever change unless I made it change. As dessert was served, individual chocolate lava cakes with raspberry coulis and gold leaf garnish rising majestically from small ramekins, I once again received nothing. Not even a mint or a cookie, just empty space where my dessert should have been. I watched as everyone at the table savored their desserts, making appreciative noises about the richness of the chocolate and complimenting Patricia on the exquisite menu selection. Zarian was so absorbed in his dessert that he didn't offer to share, didn't even seem to notice that I sat beside him with nothing. My hands trembled slightly in my lap as I gathered every ounce of courage I possessed. Rosa sensed my resolve and squeezed my hand under the table, a silent gesture of support that gave me the final push I needed. I had spent 2 years trying to fit into a family that had no intention of making room for me. 2 years of shrinking myself, accepting disrespect, and pretending not to notice the 1,000 paper cuts to my dignity. As I looked around at the family laughing and enjoying their meal while I sat excluded, I knew this moment would define our future. I could stay silent and accept my place as an outsider forever, or I could stand up for myself, whatever the consequences might be. I chose to stand up. "Actually," I said, my voice surprisingly steady despite my racing heart. "I'd like to address something." The conversations around the table gradually quieted as people realized I was speaking. Ryan tensed beside me, his fork pausing midway to his mouth. "Isabella," he whispered urgently. "Not now." But I continued, my gaze fixed on Patricia at the head of the table. "For 2 years, I've tried to be part of this family. I've overlooked the slights, excused the accidental exclusions, and accepted being treated as less than. But tonight has made something very clear that I can no longer ignore." Patricia's smile remained frozen in place, though her knuckles whitened around her dessert spoon. "I'm not sure what you mean, dear. This is hardly the time for whatever grievance you've invented." "Invented?" I repeated, maintaining my composure despite the fire building in my chest. "Let me be specific then. Tonight, I was the only person not given a place card. I was the only one servers consistently overlooked for drinks and appetizers." Game. I received leftover salad while everyone else enjoyed steak, and now no dessert while everyone else has chocolate cake. I looked around the table, meeting the eyes of each family member. Some looked away uncomfortably. Others appeared genuinely surprised, as if they hadn't noticed the pattern until I pointed it out. "But this isn't just about tonight," I continued, my voice growing stronger. "It's about the Christmas gift exchange where everyone received a present except me, because I wasn't on the family list. It's about the family vacation photos where I was asked to step aside so you could get just the family. It's about my wedding picture being the only one absent from your family photo wall." Richard frowned deeply, looking genuinely confused and troubled. "Patricia, is this true?" Before Patricia could respond, Rosa spoke up firmly. "It's all true, Richard. I've witnessed it myself numerous times." "And this is ridiculous," Patricia said, her voice rising slightly as her carefully maintained facade began to crack. "Isabella has always been overly sensitive. We've done nothing but welcome her into our home." "Welcome me?" I echoed in disbelief. "You've systematically excluded me from day one. You compare me unfavorably to Savannah at every opportunity. You forget to include me in family events. You dismiss my career, my background, everything about me that doesn't meet your impossible standards." Ryan finally found his voice, but not to defend me. "Isabella, you're embarrassing yourself and my family. This is my father's retirement dinner." His words stung worse than anything Patricia had ever done. "Your family?" I repeated, the phrase hanging in the air like smoke. "After 2 years of marriage, I'm still not part of your family in your mind." "That's not what I meant," Ryan backpedaled, looking around at the uncomfortable faces of his relatives. "Isn't it?" I reached into my purse and pulled out my phone. "3 weeks ago, you and your mother exchanged texts about me. Would you like me to read them to everyone?" Ryan's face drained of all color. "You went through my phone? I didn't have to. You left it open on the nightstand when you went to shower." The notification from Mom caught my eye. I scrolled to the saved screenshot. Your mother wrote, and I quote, "Isabella looked completely out of place at the charity luncheon. Could you not have at least helped her select appropriate attire? Savannah always understood these events." Gasps and murmurs rippled around the table like waves. Carmen looked down at her plate. Marcus and Jennifer exchanged meaningful glances. "And you replied," I continued, my voice finally cracking with emotion, "I know, Mom. I wonder if she'll ever fit in with us." "You never defended me," I said to Ryan, tears finally threatening to spill. "Not once in 2 years have you stood up to your mother when she belittled me. How dare you?" Patricia hissed, abandoning her poised facade completely. "Ryan has given you a life you never could have achieved on your own. A nobody from a nothing family, and this is your gratitude?" "Mother!" Carmen exclaimed, shocked at the naked hostility. Richard stood up abruptly, his napkin falling to the floor. "Patricia, that's enough." "No, Richard, it's not enough," Patricia continued, her carefully constructed image crumbling before everyone's eyes. "She has never been good enough for our son, and everyone in this room knows it. I've merely been the only one with the courage to acknowledge it."
Ryan looked torn, his gaze moving frantically between his mother and me like a spectator at a tennis match. "Mom, please stop." "Choose, Ryan," Patricia demanded, her voice cutting through the air like a blade. "Right now. Your family or Howd?" Her ultimatum was absolute. 22 pairs of eyes moved to Ryan, waiting for his response. I held my breath, part of me still hoping against all evidence that he would finally choose me. Ryan swallowed hard, looking at his mother, then at me, then down at his half-eaten dessert. His silence was answer enough. I stood up slowly, placing my napkin beside my empty space. "Thank you for making this so clear, both of you. I won't stay where I'm not wanted or respected." Dignity was all I had left, and I clung to it as I walked out of the dining room with my head held high. No one called after me. No one followed. Not even Ryan. In the foyer, I collected my coat from the confused staff member and stepped out into the cool November night. The desert air felt clean and sharp in my lungs. Tears threatened, but I refused to shed them on Patricia's property. I made it to my car before I heard footsteps behind me. "Isabella, wait." It was Rosa, not Ryan. "I need to go," I said, fumbling with my keys with shaking hands. "I know, sweetheart, but you shouldn't drive upset. Let me take you home." "I can manage," I insisted, though my hands were trembling. "Then I'll follow you to make sure you get there safely," Rosa said firmly. "And Isabella, I'm proud of you. What you did in there took tremendous courage." As I drove away from the mansion, I glanced in my rearview mirror. Rosa's headlights were steady behind me, but there was no sign of Ryan in the driveway. No sign that my husband had chosen to follow his wife instead of remaining with his mother. That told me everything I needed to know about my marriage and my future. The months that followed were the most difficult and transformative of my life. That night at Patricia's table became the catalyst for changes I never could have imagined. Changes that ultimately led to a stronger, more authentic life than I had ever thought possible. But that confrontation was just the beginning of my journey towards self-respect and genuine family bonds built on love rather than obligation. Have you ever experienced challenges with in-laws or family members who made you feel excluded or unwelcome? How did you handle the situation, and what would you do differently? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments below. Your experiences might help someone else going through something similar. I've created a complete rewrite of the family drama story with the new title, "My Mother-in-Law Served Steaks and Desserts to My Husband's Family, Then Handed Me Leftovers." The story has been adapted with